This is the level of democracy and free speech that we have in the UK. The Home Secretary is warning that waving a Palestinian flag may become a criminal offense. You actually heard that right. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. So what she did is she sent a letter, okay? This was an internal memo that she sent to the chief constables in England and Wales, to the police. And I want you to, I'm going to read this to you so you can see how psychotic this lady is. So she says here that, "Dear all, you will be aware of and no doubt share my disgust at the barbaric terrorist attacks we've seen committed against Israel in recent days." Yeah, okay, again, oh, Israel the victim. "Sadly, experience indicates that whenever Israel is attacked, Islamists and other racists seek to use legitimate Israeli defensive measures as a pretext to stir up hatred against British Jews and increase fear within the Jewish community." Christ, I don't even know where to begin. What are legitimate Israeli defensive measures? Making sure that 2 million people can't eat? They have no food, electricity? Are you telling me everyone in Gaza is a Hamas militant? They're all militants, including the children, which make up half of the population. That you should be condemning that. You should be telling the Israelis, shame on you. Shame on you. How can you cut water and the electricity and the food from people who are living under siege? What is wrong with you? This is a war crime, an actual war crime. You cannot do collective punishment. Shame on you. No, she can't do that because she's a spineless person, just like most of the cabinet. And, she's more preoccupied with someone wearing a Palestinian scarf or waving a Palestinian flag. I want you to think about how sick this is, that Palestinians on their own soil, they are treated like subhuman. They are denied statehood. They are denied the ability to travel. In Gaza, no way you can go anywhere by sea or by land. And then even waving their flag, in Jerusalem, the Israelis ban them from waving their own flag. And now in England, apparently this is such an issue that, it's causing the Home Secretary immeasurable distress. Oh my, you poor lady. You poor lady. And look at this nonsense that racists and Islamists want to stir up hatred against British Jews. Why are you equating British Jews with Israel? Don't you find that weird that she's doing that? Many Jews would actually take offense at that. That's like saying, well, Saudi Arabia did something bad and, we don't want people stirring up hatred here against Muslims by criticizing Saudi Arabia. What does that have to do with anything? Why are you equating being Jewish with being a Zionist? Zionism is a political ideology that is barely 150 years old. So by her logic, there were no Jews before, prior to 150 years ago. This is disgusting, honestly. And then she says that people are using that as a pretext to stir up hatred against British Jews. What rubbish! What rubbish! Who the hell is doing that? Literally no one is doing that. And then she says down here that, as you know, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organization in the UK in its entirety. It is therefore a criminal offense for a person in the United Kingdom to belong to Hamas, invite support for Hamas, express support for Hamas whilst being reckless as to whether the expression will encourage support of it, arrange a meeting in support of Hamas, wear clothing or carry articles in public which arouse reasonable suspicion that an individual is a member or supporter of Hamas, or publish an image of an article such as a flag or logo in the same circumstances. Jesus, are you allowed to breathe in this country anymore? And now look what she says. She goes further. This is no longer about Hamas. She's literally saying this, right? She is saying, of course, it is not just explicit pro-Hamas symbols and chants that are cause for concern. I would encourage police to consider whether chants such as, quote, "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," should be understood as an expression of a violent desire to see Israel erased from the world, and whether its use in certain contexts may amount to a racially aggravated Section 5 public order offense. The funny thing is that Palestinians, they have been already erased by Israel, which also wants to take from the river to the sea, which has a chunk of Syria illegally occupied, the Golan Heights, which has all of Palestine illegally occupied, which has Sheba farms in Lebanon. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? You barely even got this job. You're a nobody. You are an ignorant nobody. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And what of it? I'll say it again. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Will be free. She says that I would encourage police to give similar consideration to the presence of symbols such as swastikas at anti-Israel demonstrations. Who the fuck is bringing a swastika to an anti-Israel demonstration? I've literally never even heard of that or seen that in my life. The people who come to an anti-Israel demonstration are sick of colonialism. They're sick of seeing Palestinians being butchered and occupied by Israel. That's it. It's that simple. When you go and you steal somebody's house, you piss them off. This is that simple. Now she says, context is crucial. Behaviors that are legitimate in some circumstances, for example, the waving of a Palestinian flag, may not be legitimate, such as when intended to glorify acts of terrorism. What does that mean? So, if I wave the Union Jack, which is the most famous flag in the world because 25% of the world was under British rule, and it does certainly make some people upset, whether we like that or not. So if I wave the Union Jack, does that mean I'm committing a criminal offense in another country, and I'm reminding them of British massacres and should be locked up? I mean, if that happened, she would go nuts, right? Like she would be appalled by the idea of such a law. By just to contemplate such a thing would be absurd. But she has no problem doing it. So she's equating all Jews in Britain with Israel, whether they like it or not. In her opinion, it's the same thing. And then on top of that, she's saying that waving a Palestinian flag in other contexts can be seen as a glorification of terrorism. What does that mean? First of all, who decides what is terrorism? And I ask this because the UK has worked with terrorists before and allowed them to run wild. And I'm not just talking about how ISIS fighters were allowed to go to Syria just to wreak havoc. But generally speaking, invading Iraq and then having Al-Qaeda come in and, take over all the... I mean, the idea that, we know what terrorism is, at one point it was any form of Irish national liberation or Irish, in terms of the IRA and during the Troubles especially, many people, were unjustly and unfairly locked up, being accused of, having been accused of blowing up a pub, right? When it was completely false. They had done no such thing, but because they were Irish, they were called terrorists and they were put in prison, right? And then, of course, I can tell you the irony that in 1945, so just after World War II, there was no such thing as Israel. Palestine was still a British mandate, but by this point, the Zionist militias, the people who went on to form Israel's army today, they had become so violent and so, they had so much training and access to weapons. Actually, many of them had been in the British Army, had been trained with, use of various explosives and ordnances, and then used that training to make letter bombs, to plant bombs in London, to plant bombs in Palestine, and assassinate British officers. And so the number one terrorist threat to the UK in 1945, post-World War II, Israel, or the Zionist militias trying to establish Israel. Do you see the irony here? The irony of this? If this were 1945, the Israelis would be trying to assassinate her just because she's the Home Secretary. Absolutely ridiculous. This is, again, one of those things where the definition is so abstract and loose that it means, it could mean absolutely anything. Any waving of a Palestinian flag, maybe you were in the wrong street, maybe you looked the wrong direction, and then they thought you were glorifying this or that. Anything is possible now, because the police can just say, well, you were glorifying terrorism because you had a flag upon you. So this has nothing to do with Hamas anymore, which is already ridiculous because Hamas is a political party in Gaza. It's the ruling party, just like Hezbollah is the ruling party. Is also a political party in Lebanon. Although, I think many people would agree they are the ruling party de facto in any case. Without Hezbollah, Lebanon would still be under Israeli occupation. So, the thing is that these are parties that also have military wings. They have to. You know why? Because Israel shits on them. Israel invaded Lebanon, committed horrific massacres. The same thing with the Palestinians. They have no choice but to have militias to defend themselves. What do you expect? They should just roll over and die because, Suella Braverman doesn't want to be offended? Go to hell. You're a fucking nobody. Here's the prime minister, another nobody who just happened to go to the right school and thinks he's some hotshot.
Scenes that we've seen in Israel over the past 36 hours are truly horrifying. I want to express my absolute solidarity.
Man, you're horrified by the last 36 hours. 75 years the Palestinians have been experiencing horrific treatment and horrific hours day in and day out.
For the people of Israel. Now is not a time.
Where is your fucking sympathy for the people of Palestine? I swear to God, they are so biased towards Israel and aggressively pro-Israel. Before, a few years ago, the prime minister might say, I express my sympathies to both sides. No, now it's just like Palestine does not even exist. I only have sympathy for the Israelis, only.
For equivocation, and I'm unequivocal. Hamas and the people who support Hamas are fully responsible for this appalling act of terror, for the murder of civilians and for the kidnapping of innocent people, including children. I've just spoken with...
Okay, are you gonna condemn... Here, I'm gonna start being like these pathetic BBC and Channel 4 journalists. Are you going to condemn Israel's kidnappings of young boys and men in Jenin and Nablus, and the various raids that they do all the time? How many times have I come on here and covered them for you? They even killed Shireen Abu Akleh, the Al Jazeera journalist, while she was covering the goddamn thing. Just being there as a journalist, they shot at the whole group. It wasn't just her. They opened fire at a group of journalists. That is what Israel does. That is what Israel, is by its very nature. It's a violent colony, a violent, disgusting colony. And unfortunately, it was created by Britain.
Prime Minister Netanyahu to assure him of the UK's steadfast support as Israel defends itself against...
Some Israeli prime ministers could not visit the UK because they would have been arrested on terrorism charges, actual terrorism charges, because they assassinated British officers. Just a little fun fact for you.
These appalling attacks. We will do everything that we can to help. Terrorism will not prevail. The scenes...
Here's another one,
There are not two sides to these events. There is no question of balance. I stand with Israel. The people who support Hamas are fully responsible for this appalling attack. They are not militants. They are not freedom fighters. They are terrorists.
Sounds like Margaret Thatcher talking about the IRA. Shut up. Seriously, shut up. You are so pathetic. Again, Suella Braverman, Rishi Sunak, they are children of immigrants, and they think that because, they want to be accepted by the British ruling elite so badly, and they have been, because that's why they've been given positions of power. Otherwise, they would have never been placed there. They want to speak like the master, the master meaning the white political elite in Britain that has, always ruled. They want to mimic them so fucking badly, that they become even more avid believers of the anti-Arab rhetoric, the pro-Israel rhetoric. Funny how that changed in a few decades, right? They are like just like good doggies, good poodles, good parrots. They will copy paste it and believe it even more than the master sometimes, even more. Uncle Tom's, right, comes from days of slavery, where you would have, one of the slaves who would live with the master in the house and keep the other slaves in line. So, basically what he's doing, even though he's of Indian origin, he is helping him and Suella Braverman, by the way. They're making sure that other people just like them, who also want to come emigrate to the UK and have a good life, cannot do that. Right? It's called pulling up the ladder behind yourself. Pulling up the ladder after yourself. That's what it is. Like you get up and then you make sure nobody else can come in. And then, of course, exporting the same bullshit pro-Israel. I'm sorry, but if you're pro-Israel, you're pro-terrorism. There's no way to describe Israel's behavior as anything other than terrorism. And I don't even like using the word because it's so diluted by these clowns that it doesn't mean anything. But, you certainly catch my drift, yes?
The days and weeks ahead will continue to be very difficult. But when we say that we stand with Israel, we mean it. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but always. And I will stand with you, the British Jewish community, not just today, not just tomorrow, but always. Am Yisrael.
This is why people hate us across the world. This is why people hate Britain, because we are like this. Because we are just, we support oppressors, or we do the oppressing. This is why people hate us, and they hate the Americans. Again, by the way, just to be unequivocal, this is nothing to do with Jews. Nothing, not once, not for 1 second think that this is something between Muslims and Jews. Not at all. You have European Jewish settlers who are Zionist, meaning they want a Jewish ethno-state in Palestine, in the Middle East, who have come there, they've settled, they've stolen the land from the Palestinians, they massacred them in 1948 in the Nakba, they expelled hundreds of thousands of them, and they just took their homes, and they pretend that they are the natives of this land. We were here 3,000 years ago. No, you weren't. I don't know where the hell I was 3,000 years ago. Nobody does. You're literally, you've emigrated. And again, nothing wrong with that. But then you're pretending to be a native, which is what the French, did in Algeria, les pieds noirs. They just they're delirious. They insisted that this is their country and they are native to it. Because some of them had kids and were born there. They think that it belongs to them. No, the fuck it doesn't. It doesn't. No matter how many kids you have, it's not your land. And the problem is not just that. It's not that you're stealing the land. It's that you steal the land and then continue oppressing the people you stole it from. Let me show you how insulting, how absolutely wretched the presenters were on Channel 4 to the Palestinian ambassador. He literally just lost 6 members of his family killed by Israel in an airstrike. Look at how disgusting they are. Look at how they speak to him. I don't even know what to say.
Now, of course, there's more than 800 dead in Gaza, including members of your own extended family. Do you know what happened to them?
They were just sitting at their home and they were simply bombarded. Their entire building was brought down. My cousin, Aya, her 2 children, her husband, her mother-in-law, and 2 other relatives died immediately, were killed instantly. And 2 of her youngest children, a twin, 2 years old, are now in intensive care. This is truly heartbreaking. And the issue here, Kirsty, is that they have no bunkers, they have no Iron Dome, they have nowhere to go. They are simply sitting ducks for the Israeli war machine.
I'm sorry for your own personal loss. Can I just be clear, though? You cannot condone the killing of civilians in Israel, can you? Nor the kidnapping of families.
No, we don't condone. And
you bitch. He's just telling you Israel killed 6 of his family members, and the first thing out of her fucking mouth is, but you can't condone the killing of civilians in Israel, right? Fuck you and fuck Israel. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Did you not just listen to what he said? Look how robotic they are. They're so inhumane. They're so ghoulish. They have no feelings. It's just this goddamn conditioning. But you do condemn Hamas, right? You do condemn Hamas, right? You're condemning Hamas, right? You don't condone Hamas, do you? You condemn Hamas? Please condone Hamas. Don't condone Hamas.
We are very clear, Kirsty. We reject any targeting or harming of civilians from all sides. And you are talking to a Palestinian representative, official, the ambassador that I represent my government, the PLO, the national movement of Palestine, and we have been committed to this for 30 years, not just today or yesterday, for 30 years. Since the signing of the Oslo Accords, we have committed to non-violence, we have committed to negotiations, as you know.
Yes, and
so this is nothing new. That's why this question...
Yeah, and what did that get Palestine? What did the Palestinians get out of that? 0. As a matter of fact, they're even worse off. They're worse off. So he's literally telling her, bitch, I'm the ambassador. The government, the Palestinian government, did all the negotiating. We signed the bloody Oslo Accords with those wretched ghouls, who pretended that, the Israelis who thought that, they can finally make peace with us and we will make peace with them. But actually what happened is they carved up Palestine into even tinier pieces. I showed you yesterday the zones A, B, C in the West Bank. It's like it's not even Swiss cheese, it's confetti. It's actual confetti. How you can look at that and call that a country or a diplomatic win is lunacy. You have to be delusional. And I'm not saying he is. On the contrary, he is so diplomatic. I respect him really, really very much because she just insulted him, by glossing over the fact that Israel killed members of his family, and he remains cool, right? I don't have his patience. It's not my job also. It's not my job to be diplomatic on here. Always. On the contrary, I have to say what you cannot usually say on the news, and that sounds like something funny. Some racist right winger would say. No, criticizing Israel. That is the first thing that you should always ask yourself about a politician. Do they criticize Israel? How do they criticize Israel? And then you will know exactly where they fall, and how legitimate they are. That is it, right? So the fact that, you cannot go on the media and criticize Israel. This guy can't even talk about Israel killing his family without her, do you condemn Hamas? I mean, this is so disgusting and shows you how nasty the media is. It's just, it's irredeemable. Irredeemable. Deliver me from this nastiness, I beg you.
This question, we have done everything in our power to find a different path.
But we have a situation now, as you heard there from Mark, that Hamas may be an empty threat, threatening to kill hostages. Do you condemn that kind of action?
Listen, hostages must be protected and must be made safe and kept safe. Absolutely, this has no discussion whatsoever. We must return the moral high ground, and Israel must immediately cease targeting civilians. And by the way, Kirsty, allow me to say this. This is an Israeli military doctrine. They call it the Iron Dome. Whenever there is such an incident, they go after the civilians to pressure the fighters. So you've heard one of the Israeli
Well, we know there's been a lot of strikes
just 2 minutes ago. He wanted to starve the people in Gaza. He wanted to cut electricity and water. These are war crimes, collective punishment.
So there is a possibility that both the UK and the European Commission will cut aid to Palestinians.
Oh, the Israelis are committing war crimes against you? Yes, well, anyway, how can we punish you further, by the way? I think the EU want to cut money, is that right?
So what's your reaction to that?
That would be very, very counterproductive, and it doesn't serve anything. They will do exactly what is Israel doing. They will do exactly the collective punishment and punishing the people who has nothing to do with this. My cousin is not Hamas. In fact, her husband works for the Palestinian Authority, the opponents of Hamas. These kids, 4 years and 2 years, have nothing to do with Hamas. Everybody, including these silly ideas in the world, are punishing the people that have nothing to do with this.
And we know that children very young are also have died in Israel. So in your view, is this a contained but appalling conflict between Hamas and Israel, or do you think Hamas want to widen the conflagration?
No, it's Israel now that wants to widen the scope. It's Israel.
But Hamas might want this whole area to be destabilized.
Well, Hamas is a militant group. We are the government. Israel has a government. There is the international community. The first and the most important priority now is to stop this madness, the atrocities immediately, and to learn the lessons.
So where does this lead?
God, I don't even know what to say. I really don't. Here's another one. Again, is the Palestinian ambassador to the UK?
The Palestinian Authority going to do about today's attacks?
The media would invite me when an Israeli is harmed. But why wasn't I invited to discuss the murder of a Palestinian boy or girl only in the last 48 hours? Why is it always when Israelis are harmed? Now, this is also about how this whole conflict is perceived. When the international media will stop portraying this as a clash or as confrontation, not as a people under oppression that has the right to resist illegality. Every life lost is a tragedy. And we know this best, we the Palestinian people, because only this month, 11 Palestinians were killed by the state-sponsored occupying army including 5 children. We have been set on focusing on the root cause of all this, set on how do we break away from this 75-year-old deadly cycle.
Again, literally the first thing, like, what are you going to do to be more submissive to us? Yes? They just want to humiliate anybody who is pro-Palestine, and it's not even a pro-Palestine thing. It's just like someone who is sane. Someone who is sane, who can see that you have an oppressor, you have a colony, and you have oppressed people, you have colonized people. It's not anti this or pro that. You are, calling out the truth, being sane. Really, it's disgusting. It is so ignorant and disgusting how wrong they cover this issue. The Palestinian issue, and again, it's not just Palestine. Even it's Palestine plus what Israel is occupying in Syria, the atrocities that the Israelis committed in Lebanon. Jesus, the list is endless. The list is endless. And people wonder why countries become, more authoritarian, more restricted, isolated, closed off. Well, of course, when you have the Israelis that are constantly trying to attack you and destroy your government, and remember, one of the Israeli spies in the Cold War almost became the Syrian defense minister before he was caught and then executed. Okay, so if you think that there's no threat from Israel, yeah, okay, you're wrong. My point is that, this makes countries become authoritarian because they have to, trample on people's freedoms. And then even if it's not true that they need to do that, they could still use it as a pretext, right? Which you see often in the West, where they use something as a pretext to take away people's civil liberties and so on. But in the case of Israel, and Syria, it's no wonder these countries become isolated, more authoritarian, or they can't enjoy the same things as before, because you have an enemy living next door who's trying to destroy you, who is destroying you. I'm sorry, but no one is obliged or obligated to tolerate Israel. No one. Israel can go to hell. Israel is an illegitimate colony. It is not a country. The people who live in Israel, the people who run Israel, have dual, triple, I don't know what nationality. They can easily go back to where they came from, and if they want, they can re-emigrate peacefully in Palestine and live among everybody else, like people used to do for millennia. There was no problem. So, no one has to tolerate Israel, and no one has to tolerate having a media like this. These people are not journalists. These people are scum. These people are scum. They lack any form of empathy. And if they do have empathy, if they can see what's right and wrong, and they know that the Palestinians are suffering, but they still choose to side with the Israelis and portray Palestinians as terrorists for daring to resist their oppressors, then they are spineless and they should not be in this profession. They should go find another job. Go find another job. You're not fit for this. And really, I saw a super chat that I wanted to read to you guys. Yeah, so SR Warner is saying, Warner, deeply concerned that this will be used by evangelicals in this country, in the United States. The colonizers here have never upheld a treaty with the Native Americans, correct? Ever. Not one, no authority, free Palestine. Absolutely correct. Innumerable treaties, as you just pointed out, Warner, that have been signed between the Native American tribes in Northern America and the United States, and they broke every single one of them. The United States broke all of these treaties, which is, this is. I was just talking about this yesterday, how they put all the natives in reservations. And when I was a boy, when I first heard this term in this context, I was like, what do you mean a reservation? I thought that's for like animals or parks or something. And no, it turns out like they put the natives in these tiny specks of land when actually the whole goddamn place belongs to them, right? It's again very, very, very similar to what the Palestinians are going through. And the Palestinians, if they don't liberate their land, they will end up in a similar situation where they're, and Israel is already trying to destroy Palestine and Palestinians. There are secret government documents that have come out where the Israelis had a plan to ship Palestinians off to Latin America. If you said you wanted to do that with the Israelis, to ship them off to Latin America. Jesus Christ, they would never shut up. They'd come up with a million things. Oh, you're anti-Semitic. Oh, ethnic cleansing. Oh, but it's fine when you do it. It's fine when you want to ship out Semites, actual Semites, people who are Palestinian or Arab. You want to kick them out of their homes again and again and again. You mentioned evangelicals, Warner, and I really think it's important to get this across to Americans or evangelical Americans who think that being a Zionist or liking Israel is something Christian. There's absolutely nothing Christian about Israel. Israel is the antithesis of everything Christian that you imagine, right? So being kind, not killing people, not putting them in camps or ghettos, cutting off their water, cutting off their electricity. These are not Christian things, yes? They're not Jewish things or Muslim things for that matter. No religion teaches you to do this. So I don't know where this connection comes from. You have to like Israel. No, you absolutely don't. Actually, if you're really Christian, you would speak out against Israel because of its behavior, because it's not it's unbecoming of Judaism, of Islam, of Christianity, of all these religions. It's just incompatible. And the Israelis what they've done is they've hijacked Judaism the same way ISIS did this with Islam. They hijacked the religion. They say that they are the only official spokespersons and representatives of Muslims on earth, which is exactly what the Israelis say about Jews. They say that this is the Jewish state, etc., etc. And then you see how the politicians talk in the West. They say that, they equate Jews with Israelis. Since when? And then ISIS, what they did is they took the land as well, right? Bilad Sham, so the Levant, the Syrians said that this land is only for Muslims, and the Muslims that we speak for, and we decide who is a Muslim and who isn't. And those that we, deem, and remember, the biggest victims, by the way, of Al-Qaeda, the biggest victims of ISIS are other Muslims, okay? They are not people in Europe or Paris, as tragic as those attacks were. What I find very shady, I'm not implying anything, I just find it shady, that these terrorists that commit these attacks in Europe are always somehow known to the security services beforehand. Unbelievable how uncanny that is. In any case, I just think it's important to show you how batshit they're going. Like, basically, this Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, thinks that maybe this is pro-Hamas. No one's pro-Hamas. Okay, people are just anti-colonial. That's what it is. Okay, maybe many supporters of Palestine don't know that what they're doing is actually anti-colonial, but it is, and that's it doesn't matter if you think of it that way or not. The important thing is to realize that, okay, Palestinians are really the ones who are the underdogs here. They're the ones that are suffering the most. You don't have to look that far to or dig that much to understand what's going on. It's very, very quite simple. Going back to the evangelicals in the US, I mean, I hope, I don't know if this video or somebody else will, but hopefully somebody, shows them the light, no pun intended.